Imagine this. You are standing in a penthouse overlooking a city you own. The glass beneath your hand is cool, the air is silent, and the numbers on your brokerage account are so obscenely high they have ceased to represent money and have become a mere abstraction. A high score in a game you stopped enjoying years ago. Yet at 3 a.m., you are jolted awake by a cold sweat. Not from a nightmare about monsters, but from a dream so mundane, it is horrifying. You are standing in a grocery store. Your credit card is declined, and you cannot afford a loaf of bread. This is the paradox that lives behind the gilded gates and the tailored suits. We typically assume that fear of poverty is a condition of the poor, a rational anxiety born of scarcity. But what if the most crippling, psychologically paralyzing terror of poverty belongs exclusively to those who have already escaped it? There exists a strange, unspoken law in the psychology of wealth. The closer you get to the sun, the more terrified you become of the dark. For the self-made billionaire, the factory worker's son who built an empire, the memory of being broke is not a distant past. It is a haunting specter that grows sharper with every zero added to their net worth. This creates a crippling central contradiction. The very engine that drove them to accumulate wealth, the fear of having nothing, becomes a cage that prevents them from enjoying the freedom that wealth is supposed to buy. Why does abundance breed such a profound scarcity mindset? Why do the richest people often live like paupers in their own minds, terrified of a future that the math says will never come? The title, The Rich Man's Secret Fear of Going Broke, is not a statement about financial planning. It is a key to a locked door. It asks us to look beyond the balance sheet and into the soul. Is it possible that the ultimate luxury isn't a private jet, but the ability to sleep through the night without the ghost of poverty knocking at the door? And if you stripped away all the assets, what would be left of the man who spent his life running from the very thing he fears he still is? If this paradox resonates with the part of you that suspects wealth is more psychological than financial, hit that subscribe button now, because we're about to go deep into the minds of the ultra-wealthy, and you won't want to miss what comes next. To understand this secret fear, we must first dismantle the popular myth that money is merely a tool. For the wealthy man haunted by the specter of poverty, money is not a tool. It is an identity. The psychologist diagnosing this condition, drawing from the depths of Jungian shadow work and modern behavioral economics, identifies the root cause as a catastrophic fusion of self-worth with net worth. The hidden problem is that for the self-made rich, going broke does not simply mean losing assets. It means the annihilation of the self. They have spent decades constructing an identity brick by brick, where every acquisition was a validation of their existence. To lose the money is to lose the proof that they matter. This manifests through what the psychologist calls the imposter's trap. Deep within the psyche of the wealthy lies the unshakable belief that their fortune was a fluke, a temporary glitch in the universe that will soon correct itself. They look in the mirror and do not see a captain of industry. They see the broke young man they used to be, wearing expensive clothes as a costume, waiting to be discovered and cast out. The diagnosis reveals a fundamental human flaw. We do not outgrow our formative traumas. We simply build monuments on top of them. For the factory worker's son, poverty was not an economic condition. It was a state of humiliation. Consequently, his relentless pursuit of wealth was never a pursuit of luxury. It was a desperate flight from shame. But because he never addressed the shame, only the bank account, the fear never subsided. It merely evolved, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for a market dip to whisper, "You never deserved this. You are still that broke man." And soon, the world will know it. When a man's identity is fused with his assets, and his deepest fear is the return to a state of humiliation, the consequences are not confined to his own psyche. They radiate outward, silently shaping his entire world. The psychologist warns that this hidden terror transforms the wealthy man into a tragic figure, a king who builds a fortress not to keep invaders out, but to keep himself imprisoned within. The most immediate consequence is the erosion of genuine human connection. Paranoia becomes the currency of his relationships. He begins to view his spouse, his children, and his closest friends through a distorted lens, unable to distinguish between authentic love and opportunistic affection. Is his daughter proud of him, or is she waiting for the inheritance? Does his wife see him, or does she see the lifestyle he provides? This suspicion creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. By withholding emotional vulnerability to protect his wealth, he cultivates the very transactional relationships he fears, leaving him utterly isolated in the penthouse he worked so hard to build. The second, more insidious consequence is what the psychologist terms the hoarding paradox. Instead of using wealth to buy freedom, time, experiences, peace, the fear of going broke compels him to hoard aggressively, turning his life into a joyless exercise in preservation. He drives a sensible car while dreaming of a sports car. He postpones retirement year after year, terrified that stopping work will trigger the collapse. He denies himself the very pleasures his younger self dreamed of, living as a custodian of his own fortune rather than its owner. This relentless anxiety bleeds into his physical body, manifesting as chronic insomnia, hypertension, and a gnawing sense of dread that no luxury vacation can cure. The world he has built, designed to be a sanctuary against poverty, becomes a gilded cage. And the cruelest irony? While obsessing over a future collapse that likely will never come, he sacrifices the present moment entirely, ensuring that even at the peak of his wealth, he never actually feels rich. If you're beginning to see how fear silently shapes even the most successful lives, smash that like button, drop a comment on what you think is the real root of this terror, and subscribe so you don't miss the final 2 parts where we uncover the path out of this cage. The path to resolution begins with a radical, almost violent rupture from the thinking that built the fortune in the first place. The psychologist's prescription is not a financial strategy. It is an existential unbinding. The wealthy man must learn to separate his being from his having. The core solution lies in what can be called the finite game shift. For his entire life, he has been playing the finite game of wealth accumulation, a game with clear winners and losers, where the goal is to amass more than the next person, and the fear of losing defines every move. The psychologist prescribes a transition to the infinite game, where the goal is no longer to hoard resources, but to cultivate identity, purpose, and connection that exist independently of the bank account. This requires a counterintuitive strategy that terrifies the wealthy man more than bankruptcy itself: voluntary limitation and identity diversification. The prescription demands that he identify a sum of money, a significant, painful sum, and give it away not for tax benefits, not for legacy naming rights, but purely for the sake of proving to his own subconscious that he can survive without it. This is not charity. It is psychological exposure therapy. He must force himself to experience the sensation of loss while still standing, to shatter the illusion that a reduction in numbers equates to a reduction in self. Furthermore, he must aggressively cultivate identities outside of financier or CEO. He must become a painter, a mentor, a gardener, roles where his value is not priced by the market. The metaphor is that of a table. If a table has only one leg, wealth, it topples the moment that leg is weakened. The prescription is to build 4 more legs: family, craft, community, and self-knowledge. Only when he can define himself without mentioning his net worth does he finally build a stability that no crash can ever touch. The secret is learning to be rich in who he is, so he no longer needs to panic about what he has. The ultimate truth that emerges from this psychological excavation is as simple as it is devastating. The rich man's secret fear of going broke was never about money at all. Money was merely the vessel, the measurable stand-in for something far more primal. The psychologist reveals that beneath the spreadsheets, the acquisitions, and the empire building lay a single unhealed wound, the terror of being nothing. The paradigm shift the wealthy man must undergo is the recognition that he has been chasing the wrong salvation his entire life. He believed that if he could just accumulate enough, he could outrun the ghost of his former broke self. But ghosts do not chase bank accounts. They chase unresolved identities. You cannot out-earn a psychological wound. You can only outgrow it through radical self-confrontation. This is the final, profound revelation. Going broke is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Living your entire life as a prisoner to the fear of it is. The man who finally understands this no longer checks his portfolio with a racing heart. He no longer measures his worth by the volatility of the market. He has disentangled his soul from his net worth, and in doing so, he has achieved the one thing his billions could never buy: sovereignty. He is no longer a slave to the numbers, because he has finally internalized that his value as a human being is a fixed, immutable constant, not a variable tied to the Dow Jones. So, what is the lasting impact? The title, "The Rich Man's Secret Fear of Going Broke," is ultimately a mirror held up to every viewer, regardless of their bank balance. Whether you have $10 or 10 million, you are susceptible to the same trap. The belief that your worth is external. The invitation is to ask yourself the question the wealthy man spent a lifetime avoiding. If everything I owned vanished tomorrow, who would I be? If the answer terrifies you, then you are just as broke as he was. And if the answer is clear, unwavering, and rooted in who you are rather than what you have, then you have discovered a wealth no recession can touch.